Before I get started, I do this with everything that's recorded. Mom, you can watch this one. There's no sex talk really in it. It'll be a little sad, just so you know. But Mom, if you found this on YouTube, you're more than allowed to proceed. You don't have to close this one down. I read one on Saturday about masturbating to Facebook.
He usually tells her that she can't watch it.
Right, usually I say, Mom, you can't watch it, but this one, Mom? Okay. Alright, let's get sad. The importance of honeycomb-colored glasses. Better to understand than to be understood. Better to forgive than to be forgiven. St. Francis of Assisi. This was no time for complaints. Fuck! Paul, Beth, and I had just walked into my #1 favorite bar. What's wrong, baby? Beth turned to Paul. They lived across the country. Were just visiting me for a few days. They'd been together over 7 years. They were perfect for each other. Before they met, Beth had loved me. My glasses! Paul was already retracing his steps. Disabled eyes on the floor, he made his way backwards out of the bar. My heart sank. It was a beautiful evening. The sunshine was bright and devastating as it dwindled, slowly releasing the buildings of San Francisco from its shiny grip, making room for crisp air and cold fog. It was a perfect evening to waste at a bar. Paul's practically blind, Beth said. We really need to find these glasses. She could sense my hesitation. The booze isn't going anywhere, jackass. I entertained the thought of telling them both good luck and bellying up to the bar. But I followed them outside, eyes glued to the ground, hoping beyond hope to spot the spectacles and return to the task so close at hand. They're the exact same design as Truman Capote's. Paul's really into fashion. I looked and saw that this was true. His jeans vintage, his shirt crisp, his glasses, apparently, the same as Truman Capote's. Except they're honeycomb. They're the color of honeycomb. Right. I started looking for glasses the color of beer. We walked down Valencia Street. Paul was wearing prescription sun blockers, which would soon be useless. The sun was already sliding behind Twin Peaks. I'll wear my sunglasses too, out of solidarity, I half joked. I know a hipster bar we could go to. No one will even notice. Beth laughed. Her green eyes flitted to mine, and for a second we held the glance. Her skin was still the color of a white Russian. Her freckles still spread across her nose like chocolate sprinkles on a scoop of vanilla ice cream. Her front tooth still the tiniest bit crooked. I realized I still loved her. Not so much realized as remembered. Paul kept searching. Each block brought more disappointment. Soon we were back at my apartment. Don't let this ruin the trip, Beth was whispering. I won't, he said. It'll just ruin tonight. I smiled. Good answer. You and Isaac, you guys go grab a drink. I'm going to keep looking. I always liked Paul. Beth and I had settled in to my second favorite bar in the city, a place by my apartment where they served martinis the size of swimming pools. We had dated back when we were 19, back when it was all dirty dishes, underage drinking, and overdue library books. But we drifted apart, and along came Paul. Paul and I had met a few times. We got along. Beth and I were ancient history by then. And now, well, the happy couple wanted to see San Francisco, but they didn't have much money. Of course they could stay with me, I said. Beth put her glass to her lips, and I contemplated how many cities I would lay to waste to put her mouth on mine. I missed that mouth. Or maybe I just missed a mouth. Sometimes it's easy to forget the difference. I'm proud of you. I stopped looking at her lips. She was proud of me. Whether it was because my career was starting to look more like a success story and less of a suicide, or just because I was behaving myself tonight, I couldn't quite tell. I'm proud of you too, Beth. And why wouldn't I be? She seemed to be doing everything right these days. No girlfriend? I smiled. None at the moment. I'm told I'm hard to get along with. Beth had left me because of my drinking. The 3 women I had been in love with since Beth had done the same, and all had gone on to much better things. Weddings, careers, Paul. All my exes are successes. At that moment, I could have kissed her. She wouldn't have turned away. Beth looked toward the door. Paul walked in, still wearing his sunglasses. God, we don't usually drink that much. Paul and Beth were hungover. We had spent the night swallowing vodka and chewing olives. I had been on my best behavior. Paul had cheered up, despite his glasses being gone forever. Everyone was doing a great job. At brunch, I downed Bloody Marias while they sipped water. They say people party in New Orleans, but New Orleans thinks San Francisco has a drinking problem. I laughed. Beth winced. I forked up the rest of my steak and eggs. Let's walk. To walk the streets of San Francisco is to love this city. Union Square melts into Chinatown, which fades into North Beach when no one's paying attention. Churches and cafes, bookstores and bike shops, sunshine, fog, and bright green trees. I know why I moved here. Why I put 3,000 miles between me and my family, me and my friends. It was for a woman. But really, it was to get away from violence, disappointment, fear, the usual suspects. It's been over 5 years and San Francisco is home now. When someone from my past decides to visit, I always take them on a long walk, telling them stories of the city's history and making up half-truths just for fun. I talk constantly. It is the only way I know to keep myself from breaking into a run, dragging them through the streets and screaming in their faces, "Do you see? Do you see? Can't you see?" By the time we made it to Fisherman's Wharf, I had popped into 4 bars. 3 favorites, number 12, number 17, and number 9. Plus 1 I had never been to for a few quick pick-me-ups. Beth and Paul only caught me once, when I told them I was a bit lost and needed to ask for directions. I snuck into number 17 and had a shot of vodka with a businessman in an expensive suit. I muttered my usual crowd-pleasing toast, "Fuck the Nazis!" But it came out slurred, and the man barely chuckled. The wide windows looked over the bay. I slammed my glass down and looked up to see Beth, standing there in the light, hip jutted out, chin up, her green eyes burning through my red ones. We'd been here before. She walked away. I couldn't even get off a "one for the road" joke. Of course I followed. We walked the tacky tourist traps and basked in the beauty of the Golden Gate Bridge. And then we got on the F train. As the metal cable car careened down Market Street, Paul took my elbow. "Hey man, this is great. Thanks so much." Across the car was a little girl, her hair dark, her head tilted, staring at us. I smiled at her. "But listen, man, I don't know how to say it, but, well, Beth is kind of bummed out, you know, by your drinking." The girl smiled back at me. I made a face. "Think you could, I don't know, tone it down a little?" The girl made a face back. "Yeah, sure. Thanks, man. Thanks so much." "No problem." I got out of my seat. I walked over to the small girl and I started to dance. Her mother balked, trying to grab her child away from me. Paul jumped up. Beth yelled something. I blacked out. My mouth tasted like I had been chewing on a bag of assholes. My feet were hot and still encased in boots. My shirt was balled up under my head as a pillow, but my pants were still on. It was morning. I watched out of barely cracked eyes as Beth stomped by with a bag. "Hey, man." Paul appeared in my line of sight. I remembered that I was 28 and lived in San Francisco. I remembered that I drank too much. I remembered dancing with a little girl on a train. "We're going to take off. We had a great time, but Beth has got cousins in the East Bay, and we figure we should see them while we're out here." Should I apologize to her? Paul glanced behind him and lowered his voice. Man, it couldn't hurt. I didn't ask, but he told me we had gone to a bar and I had started taking shots every 15 minutes like clockwork. Some of my friends were there, he said, co-workers, everyone was having a great time. Then I started kicking bottles. I didn't listen to the rest. I'd heard this story before. Beth and I had lived it more times than either of us cared to remember. I opened my eyes. "Maybe you two should have only stayed for one night." "You're blaming us?" I was, but only for a moment, man. I'll talk to her. When Beth and Paul left, it was 9:37 in the morning. My third favorite bar, which was just around the corner, had been open for 37 minutes. The bar was as dark as the day was bright. The morning regulars were already in place. They were on coke-fueled wraparounds, or they were nurses getting off the night shift. They were people with good reasons to be at a bar on a Sunday morning. Shot? Cassie was blonde and beautiful. She'd been working Sunday mornings ever since the bartender, whose shift it used to be, her fiancé Steve, had died of cancer at the age of 34. The chemo had puffed him up like a human balloon. Am I breathing? We drank. And then we drank another, and then another. It wasn't as dramatic as it sounds. The light slicing through the window burned into my eyes. "Any sunglasses in Lost and Found?" "Take a look." Cassie pulled open a drawer on the side of the bar. One cell phone, 2 pairs of shitty sunglasses, and some honey-colored spectacles. They looked like Truman Capote's. "You're kidding me." When I called Beth, Paul picked up. I described the glasses. "Those are them. Wow. We're going to the Ferry Building this evening. Could you meet us there?" "Sure." I hung up. Cassie looked at me. "Did you save the day, hero?" I grinned back. "Of course. All is forgiven. Shall we celebrate?" I stood straight up. Paul and Beth walked toward me. The Ferry Building, that gray behemoth perched on the San Francisco Bay, was behind them. Beyond it, an expanse of blue, and then the hills of Oakland. I presented the glasses. Paul thanked me, and we hugged. I hugged Beth. I could smell her. I thought of what it would take to crush the entire city of Boston all at once. She smelled me. So, where were you? Where'd you find them this morning? Paul hadn't asked when we talked on the phone, most likely because he already knew the answer. Someone must have picked them up off the street that first night and brought them into my third favorite bar, thinking some drunk had dropped them. I didn't want to explain all that, though. I looked at Beth's eyes. Dresden would be a joke compared to what I would do. A bar, Beth. I found them at a bar. I turned toward an outdoor restaurant. There were 2 women, and they sat drinking champagne. I could feel Paul and Beth's eyes on my back, or maybe they had already started to leave. I walked over and spread my arms around the women's shoulders. "Laugh," I said. "Please. The next round is on me. The night's on me. But please, just bend your heads back and laugh."